Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Good evening, Eric Winkler. How are you? Welcome. Stuart Ingrulia, good evening to you. Dicey, good evening. I'm not saying good evening to Peak Twisted Trees or Mark the Gentleman Wood Turner, because I've had the misfortune of having to speak to them already. And good evening, Wayne the Wood Turner. How are you? Good evening, mate. Colin Izzard, welcome. Mark Pritchard, good evening to you, my friend. Vincent Charlton, good evening to you. Gerard, the French Turner, good evening. How are you? Welcome. And welcome to Brian at Heartwood Turning. Good evening to you, Brian, and welcome. And I think that's, oh no, Gerard, I've got Gerard. Aaron Walsh, good evening to you. Alan the Woodpecker, good evening and welcome. Chris, good evening to you. Spinning Wood Dodger, welcome to you. Ronnie, good evening to you, Ronnie. And Leona Fay. We are graced with Leona Fay. Good evening, Leona, and welcome. Dave Oatey, welcome to you. A massive echo. Right. I wonder why that is. Why have we got a massive echo?
That's your YouTube feed muted.
Hang on a minute. Yeah, but if I get rid of the desktop audio, I've only got that on there. Right, let's have a look and see what the problem is. Boom, 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 and hide all. I know why. I got the face cam on. That should be better now. Jabra, mic aux off. Yeah, that should be better now. Good evening, Shay. Alan Pywell, good evening to you. Chris Nunn, good evening and welcome. Clive Rogerston, Andy Clonechley, good evening. Could somebody let me know whether we are still getting an echo? I had a setting that I hadn't sorted out. Let's go back on there. Chris, good evening, good evening, good evening. Yep. Shay, I think I've caught everybody now. Tony Eastham, good evening to you and welcome. Adrian Olson, how are you? Good evening and welcome. You're not late. Lawrence Bagasia, good evening to you and welcome. I think that's caught everybody up now.
Can we ask if the chat can hear the earworms?
Yeah, can I ask, please, can you hear the earworms? And in fact, I'll put the earworms on for now. Look, you can see them as well as hear them.
Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Can you hear my beautiful voice?
Alternatively, you could listen to me.
There's no echo now, thanks, Jeff Lynch, and welcome. Scott McDowell, good evening and welcome to you. Joseph Bonici, good evening to you, sir. That's excellent, thank you. Just one little setting can ruin everything. And can you hear the... You can... Oh, yes, you can. That's great. Thanks, Shay. Many thanks to you. That's good. All seems to be good. Leroy, good evening. And welcome. Graham Light, Cunning Stunts, good evening to you. I'm not even going to answer that, Graham, I'm afraid. Pete sound was all good. Oh, thanks, Dave. Thanks for pointing that out. I do appreciate people pointing out things when they're not working properly. And TJ Turning, good evening to you, TJ. And welcome as well.
And I'm not turning, so I'm good.
That's all right. I've got my Coke here. I'm quite happy with my Diet Coke, thank you. Peter O'Donnell, good evening and welcome to you. Joseph, my old friend, good evening. How are you? And welcome. Steve Robbins, good evening, Steve.
Adrian says, no, Ed. He'll probably pop in later for abuse.
He might do. I've got to prove to Ed actually that I do know. On his live, he was saying, or not on his live, on my post of the link for this, he said, I don't think that Mike Walt knows the difference between a spindle gouge and a bowl gouge. And I have to be honest, I didn't know there was a difference. But there you go. You learn something every day, don't you? So, at the end of the day, it's been a really warm day today. I don't know how it's been with you lot. It's got a little bit chillier now. A little bit chillier now. Nigel, I think I said good evening, but good evening again and welcome. So I'm just playing about here for a minute. That's not working. Yes, it is. There you go. Well, as usual, I'm always amazed that there are so many people here already because we haven't even officially started yet till 7:30. So, Chico Cash, good evening and welcome to you. Moxer, Moxre, good evening and welcome. Lucia Laporta, good evening. Buonasera to you, my friend. Patrick Sassman, good evening and welcome. I'm just going back up the chat. Mick Stratton, unfortunately I didn't miss you in the end. Good evening, Mick, and welcome. Right, I think I've caught up now. Have I? Yeah, Ian Leonard, good evening and welcome to you. I'm going to have a quick vape and I'll go on to the break, but I'll keep an eye on the chat and keep chatting. That was a big chat. A big vape, I mean. See, look, Mick Stratton saying good evening to Wayne and Gerard and everybody else. He won't say good evening to me, you see. But there you go. Still got that Boxford, Mick, which you can't have. I had a... Thank you, Simon. Cheers. Appreciate it, mate. Where's the fast forward button? Yeah, thanks, Joseph. I'll tell you what the best thing would do. Put it on stop and go somewhere else. You would already complaints off me. I have to say to anybody listening, thinking I'm being very nasty to him, Joseph and I do. I had the pleasure. Well, I met Joseph at Maker Central, and we hit it off straight away. He's a sarcastic bugger, the same as me. John M, good evening. How are you? And welcome. Nathan Carr, good evening to you and welcome. And just for those of you here, just Peter Corcoran, good evening and welcome to you, sir. L'Atelier de Leo, good evening to you, sir.
That's Lionel.
Oh, Lionel, is it? Okay, yeah. Good evening, Lionel, and welcome. As I say, Ed Oliver said to me, do I know the difference between a bowl gouge and a spindle gouge? And my answer is, yes, I do. You see, there's a bowl gouge and there's a spindle gouge. Let's see. I know the difference between these things.
Mick Stratton has something to say.
No surprise there, then. Yes, Mick. I said good evening, you blind old bugger. Did I? Did you? Maybe I just didn't take you notice of what you said, Mick, because you normally spoke such rubbish. It's hardly worth worrying about, is it, really?
Subconsciously just ignored him.
Yeah. Jonathan Flynn, hello from New York. Hello from Bedfordshire, and welcome, Jonathan. Nice to see you. This is good. I think I've kept up with everybody tonight, up to now. And the lads, I'm sure, will Terry Bartlett, good evening, Terry. Welcome. Fold, Simon, how are you? It's the the winner of the turning set of tools a few weeks ago. Good evening. How are you, Simon? Hope you're keeping well, mate. And Barry, we're turning by Barry. Good evening, everybody. Good evening to you, sir, and welcome. 5 minutes to go before we kick off officially. Henry Morgan, good evening to you, and welcome, sir. Jeremy Edwards, good morning from California, and good evening from Bedfordshire. Good evening, Jeremy, and welcome, sir. Can't see the chat. Have Mike playing the background so they... Hey, to anybody missed? Can't see the... Oh, right, okay. It's all right, Shay, my pit crew. Neil Diamond, good evening to you. And welcome. Drew Boy 22 from Texas. Good evening, Drew, and welcome. PJE, hello, and good evening to you, sir, and welcome. I've got to pop onto the break again and have another vape unofficially, but I'm keeping an eye on the chat. Don't worry about that.
PJE's come in. Hi, PJE.
Yeah, I said good evening. I actually didn't say good evening. I said hello, like he did. Mike, I'm pleased to announce that our club will restart on the 12th of July. Excellent. We've all had our jabs. Yeah, me too. Though one bloke got the squirrel version and grew long ears. Glad. Good evening, Robin. Robin Hanson, how are you? Welcome. Actually, I had my second jab last Wednesday, and the first one I had was I had quite a not as bad as my good lady. She had a really poor reaction to the first one. She had her second one about 3 weeks ago and had no reaction at all, apart from a bit of a stiff arm. So I had mine, as I say, and I felt fine till the following day. I just felt tired, and the arm ached a little bit for 24 hours, and that was it. So basically, very happy with it.
I had no reaction to my first.
No.
Absolutely nothing.
Mm.
And then the second one I had about a week ago, and it floored me for 2 days.
Yeah, but that's what happened to me on the first one, funny enough.
Well, I had my second one yesterday.
Yeah.
And I've had a very, very stiff and sore shoulder all week on my right hand side.
Mm.
So I had the injection on my left, and this morning I woke up feeling fine on both shoulders. So it's in my arm better.
It's cured your shoulder as well. Excellent. The healing powers of COVID-19 vaccine.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's this? I've just got a warning. The stream's current bit rate is lower than the recommended. Open widget. I think that might be... Is there anybody experiencing poor quality, by the way, just before we kick off in a couple of minutes?
I've got you playing on YouTube on my phone, and it's perfect.
Okay, that's good. I'll ignore that then. I'll treat it with the contempt it deserves. That's really strange. It just says warning. The current bit rate is 2646.88, which is lower than the recommended. Open widget. I'm not opening a widget. Okay.
People are saying in the chat that the picture quality is fine.
Yeah, no, I'm on it. Well, the delay. I mean, the delay. Nobody knows what the delay
does
is.
seem to be quite long.
Yeah. Well, is about 10 seconds, something like that.
That's YouTube for you. It's random, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Chris Spinningwood Dodgers.
Joseph Vanecci, good evening.
Quality.
Yeah. I don't think even YouTube can improve my quality. Alistair Turner, good evening to you. Okay, we're going to have a quick, very quick one, and then we'll start. Okay, this is the official good evening. Good evening and welcome to everybody. It's lovely to see you again. And as I say, welcome. I hope you've all had good weeks. Today is going to be... Sorry, I've just looked at what Joseph said. I might be short, but don't call me a widget. Oh, well, there you go. The subject of today's video is going to be the bowl gouge. It's a beginner's series or beginner's guide. It's number 4, I think, in the beginner's guide. Before we actually start, I would like to just mention and give a big thank you to everybody that bought me a cup of coffee last week. And if during the course of this evening you feel you'd like to buy me a cup of coffee, then pinned to the top of the chat is a link to buymeacoffee.com, and the reason for that, instead of super chat, they YouTube take a 40% cut of your hard-earned cash, and that really does go against the grain for me. So it's a less of a percentage from buymeacoffee.com, and you can buy 1, 2, or whatever you wish, or none indeed. It's up to you. It all goes into the channel, and I split everything with the lads anyway, 2 ways. No, 3 ways. Okay, so that's that out of the way. So we'll be talking about the bowl gouge. Now, the bowl gouge is a very versatile tool, and as I will show as I go through here, thinking it's a beginner's guide, if you like, there are a few things to take into account. Number one, if you live in the US, the sizing of a bowl gouge is different to that here in the UK. In the US, they take the diameter of the actual bar, or the stock, if you like. And in the UK here, it is the measurement across the flute. So this is what I'm going to be using today, which here in the UK we call a 3/8 bowl gouge. Now, the reason I'm going for a 3/8 bowl gouge is that's the most common bowl gouge that people will purchase first. I mean, I do have a 1/2-inch bowl gouge, but I'm going to just do everything with the 3/8. It's a very capable tool. Now, in the States, this would be known as a 1/2-inch bowl gouge, and the 1/2-inch bowl gouge here in the UK is known as the 5/8 in the States. Basically, it's big and bigger. You can get a 1/4-inch bowl gouge as well, so you could say small, medium, and large. It doesn't really make that much difference. Obviously, the bigger the bowl gouge, the more stability that you will get. Now, to make matters even a little bit more confusing, and I don't want to confuse the beginner or the newer turner, but there are 3 main flute designs which are available. And the flute is here, and it is the design end-on of that flute, which can have a different design. Now, here are the 3 major designs. On the top you have a V flute, in the middle you have what is known as a U flute, and then the most common in my experience, and the only one that I've ever turned with, is a parabolic flute, and that indeed is what this flute is. It's a parabolic flute. Now, I have not turned with any other design of flute. I am not primarily a bowl turner. I'm not primarily anything turner. I do spindle work and I do bowls. I don't do majority of either. So for me, that is perfect. If I was a production bowl turner, I might find that a certain design of flute is more efficient for my style of turning and the production that I do. That's fine. I can only talk from my personal experience, and I think that most newer turners will find that the gouges that they purchase will be the parabolic design on the flute. And I can't comment on that anymore, really. The same as handles. This is what I call a medium handle. I sometimes put it in this long handle here, which you can see behind, which I've got my hollowing tool in. The beauty of these is I can extend it or make it because it's a quick release, so I can have it as I wish. But again, that is a personal preference, whether you want a light handle, a heavy handle, whatever. My advice to the newer turner is get to know the tool you get first. Get to know that, get proficient with that, and then you will, if you have any shortcomings with that tool, you will then, from experience, be able to decide what you need to improve on or change to improve what you do. But don't dart about in the very beginning. Stick with it and do the best you possibly can. And when you find there's a shortcoming, there might be a solution. Do research and then do your experimentation. That's my personal advice. Don't do as I do, because I spent a stupid amount of time chopping and changing and never really got proficient with anything, as everybody knows now. Now, the main thing with the spindle gouge, with the bowl gouge, is it's very versatile. You can, if we go on to the right camera, you might say, well, why have you got a spindle and you're using a bowl gouge? Well, this is the difference between a bowl gouge and a spindle gouge. There's the spindle gouge, 3/8. There's the bowl gouge. As you can see, much more stable, more solid piece of steel used. Now, this is not a particularly difficult piece of wood, but as you can see, it's got a bit of a bow there. Now, what I want to do is to get that down to a cylinder, and let's just say I was turning a goblet or something of that sort. Now, if I just put my safety glasses on, and again, for those of you that worry about my safety, I always wear a powered respirator, apart from when I'm turning. So I have my safety glasses on. I would normally, as I say, wear a full face shield powered respirator. Okay, so that's the safety side of things out of the way. So back to this unknown species of roadkill. Don't know what it is. I just pick up bits of wood if I see it for practicing and so on. Now I've got a spindle gouge here. Now I can, of course, I can true this up with a spindle gouge. Now I'm turning about 1250 revs. Now if I put my spindle gouge onto this and I want to true it, I can immediately feel I can do it. Of course I can. But I've got to go a lot easier, because already I'm getting a lot of juddering here, because it's not really built for that. This is for fine tuning and detail work. If I get my 3/8 bowl gouge and just lower the tool rest slightly, because you want to be turning just on or above center, I can take a lot more material away, and I'm not feeling hardly, and I'm not holding on for grim death. I'm just doing a nice steady cut, and I'm getting virtually no vibration there whatsoever. I'm only taking a big cut to show you the difference the bowl gouge makes when you want to get rid of wood. You can do your shaping, basic shaping. Let's just say this is going to be a goblet bowl. Forget about it not being even on the end. Let's just say I'm going to do a goblet bowl. I can do the basic shaping easily, taking a lot of wood away here now, and then come over this way and just sort of we'll have a brandy glass. Let's have a brandy glass. Okay. So I can do very fine cuts as well, get a really nice surface, and bearing in mind this is spindle work, but I'm using a bowl gouge. Now I just want to clean that up a little bit. Again, just nice and smooth. and I can't feel, seriously, I cannot feel a thing. So there's a basic shaping, and I've taken a lot of wood away. I've got it to round in next to no time. Forget the fact there's a bit of bark here. So in that respect, the bowl gouge is a lot more versatile than the spindle gouge. Where you do need to get your spindle gouge is when you're doing finer detailed work and smaller work. Now, not only can you use it for what I showed you here, you could also use it to do your hollowing. I can show that to you very quickly. It's exactly the same. I mean, I use a 3/8 spindle gouge to hollow my goblets, but I can still use the bowl gouge. Bearing in mind, I haven't touched this with. I'll just get rid of the pointy thing on the end of my tailstock. I haven't actually touched this with a spindle gouge, and yet this is a spindle. Let's just come in a little bit there. Let's go in there. It's a bit dark now. That's fine because I haven't got the light on. See, it always helps put the light on, doesn't it? Okay, so if I wanted to just straighten up the edge here, nice light cut, but I can't feel anything. There's only a little bit of vibration. If I was using a spindle gouge, I'd have a lot more vibration. So I'm just doing a nice, steady, clean up cut. Face is clean, job done. So I've got everywhere with regards to shape, if you like, basic shape, etc., with the bowl gouge. And as I say, if I can get the, I don't know if I can actually. Yes, I can. I can make the handle smaller, shorter, and I can use it like a mini bowl here now if I want to, and I can do the hollowing as well. Whether I do a push cut like that or I want to do a pull cut. So I can use it on a spindle for a lot of different things. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but the point I was trying to make is that the bowl gouge is a much more versatile tool than the spindle gouge. It's not a specialist tool as such, and it's very simple. I beg your pardon?
Take a quick breath.
Take.
Two people have come in.
All right,
James
okay.
Cassidy,
hi, James. Good evening.
Dave Nichols.
Dave Nichols, good evening and welcome.
There's another David I can't see now. Wood Wizardry by Colin's in.
Good evening, Colin. Welcome.
And the reason I actually stopped you is Mark and I both put answers in, but there's a question there.
Right, yep.
It's on sharpening.
Right.
Also the difference between sharpening a bowl gouge and a spindle gouge.
The difference between. Okay. I haven't got on to bevel angles as such yet, but there is absolutely, essentially, let's take these off. Essentially, there is no difference in sharpening a spindle gouge and a bowl gouge with regards to the actual operation of sharpening. Where the difference lies is the bevel angle. The bevel angle, I was going to go through that now when I've done my bit on the spindle. Now, like everything else, and this might sound very on the fence to a lot of people, but it is my genuine belief. So much, as in many other crafts, are down to personal preference. Now, you can't gain knowledge without experience. So the important thing is, when you start off turning, is to basically use what you get to begin with, as I said earlier on. And the reason I truly believe that is that if you do that, as you develop, you will realize what, if any, shortcomings a particular tool has, depending on what you're turning, depending on your turning style, and indeed the types of wood that you normally would turn. So you might find that you have a problem with something. So then you do a bit of research, or you ask some friends, or you go to your club and you ask the questions, and then you're given a myriad of suggestions, because as I say, everybody has their personal preference. Now with a bowl gouge, the normal shipped angle of the bevel, and the bevel angle is this angle here on the nose, is 45 degrees in my experience. I haven't had a new one for quite a while, actually. However, I prefer personally to turn with a, you can see it on there, it's 65 degrees. 60 degrees, 50, start again, Walty, 55 degrees, the same on there. And that is my preferred angle. A lot of people like the 40-40 grind, where the wings are 40 degrees and the nose is 40 degrees. I find for the amount of bowls, I do turn quite a few bowls, but not an immense amount, that a 55-degree bevel or thereabouts, within a degree or two, suits me fine. My wings are swept back. They're not the Irish grind, very long wings. I find that great. If I can get a half an inch of shaving when I'm doing a pull cut, and I don't, and I do that nicely, that is adequate for what I want. And then obviously for the bigger bowls, I sometimes go to my half inch, because again, that is more stable again than the 3/8. But a lot of people only use the 3/8 bowl gouge for all their bowls. Fine, it's personal preference. So sharpening wise, a very long answer to a very specific short question. The methodology of sharpening is the same, but the angles are a personal preference which you gain with experience. What I will say is if you do start doing deeper bowls, if you have a 45-degree bevel, where you're going to get a problem is at the base of the bowl when you're doing that transition at the bottom of the bowl, because you're going to run out of, your bevel is going to lift, because the handle, and I'll try and show this, and if Pete or Mark can remind me to show you that later on, that your handle is going to foul the edge of the bowl before you can get that transition in. So if you have a steeper bevel angle, that means then that you have much more control and chance of keeping bevel contact as you go round to the centre of the bowl.
Mike, Ed W's got a question. He says, how do you get swept back wings with a grinding wheel?
Exactly. Well, there are two methods. One I can't do, and that's freehand sharpening. The other is with a jig. And whether, excuse me, going out of camera for a second, whether you have a grinding wheel, i.e. a grinder with wheels, or indeed the Linisher system, which I've got here, which is the Sorby Pro Edge, the theory is the same. You have what they call a jig like this, and that fits into if you've got a wheel, it'll be, if you've got a one-way system, it would be the basket on the end of the leg, but it's the same thing. It's captive there, and you basically go back and forth, and that will give you your pre-dialed in angle of bevel, and the further you roll over, the longer your wings will get. That is it in simple terms. It's a little bit more involved.
A couple of people have come in. We've got I Love Wood Turning Adam.
Good evening, Adam. Welcome.
Jeffrey Gambrill.
Good evening, Jeff.
Joseph Griffin.
Joseph Griffin, good evening and welcome to you as well. So, going back to the sharpening side of things, yeah, the swept-back wings are achieved, in my instance, and have been since I've been turning the 10 years, through a jig. There are various jigs on the market, different manufacturers. That's how I achieve, but you can do it, obviously, with practice, and if you're shown properly, with freehand sharpening. But it's not something that I've been able to achieve because I haven't spent the time on it. I'm just checking. Oh, I presume no one's having problems with...
No, everything's fine.
That's good, because it keeps on chucking this widget up on YouTube. I think it's a bit of a bug, actually. They're trying to get you to buy something. Right, okay.
Joseph Griffin's just come in. He says, evening, Mike. Hello from Plymouth. Always good to see a fellow Welshman.
Oh, nice one. Shemai, but Shemai. Nice to see you, or to hear you anyway.
And Woodward and Paul is in as well. Hi,
Woodward and Paul, good evening to you. How are you? And welcome. Welcome to everybody. And if I've missed anybody, or the lad, Paul Hoyton, I haven't said good evening to you, and good evening from the Wirral. Good evening to you, sir. Okay, so I think those are the questions. Unless anybody has any other questions at this stage, we'll go back to we'll do that to begin with, to get rid of this spindle. And as I say, the reason I had that on there was purely and simply to show you the versatility, if you like. Now, another thing, I've got to just put this blank in. I wasn't sure whether I'd use it. This is an ash blank, and it is about, I don't know, 3.5 inches, something like that. It's fairly well seasoned. I chopped this up I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, possibly. Now, I'm not doing this for any other reason than to again show you the shortcomings of a spindle gouge. Go to the overhead, I think, on this one. That's too much. Excuse me, I know what I can do there. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. I shall just have a quick look on there. Go to configure video and get rid of the zoom. That's better. There you go. Right, so you've got this blank on here. Now, on this particular instance, what I would want to be doing is to bring it round here to get that sort of a shape. Yeah, that's what I'm aiming for. I'm not going to go through the whole process now. I'm just showing you the point I'm trying to make. Now, if I take a 3/8 spindle gouge on this, it's not only, in my opinion, dangerous, but I won't go at breakneck speed, but you can see there's a lot of air here on this corner, and that's the first thing you're going to attack, is that bit there. So I'm only doing, I don't know, 300 RPM. Now, if I attack that with a spindle gouge, and I'm not holding on for grim death, it can be done. Hang on, safety glasses. That's why I do like wearing my full face respirator. Okay, so going back to this now, this is just a 3/8 spindle gouge, but I think you can see that it's going to be a long process, and it's not a very pleasant one either, because you've got to literally nibble away, and I can feel every bit of jerk and kickback. Now, if I take my 3/8 bowl gouge, number one, I can, with confidence, turn the speed up to a more acceptable speed, which is 700 RPM. And again, it's 3/8 bowl gouge, nice and easy. I can get rid of, just to start, till I get rid of all the air. Now, just to make a comparison, let's go back to the 3/8 at 730. It's not a very nice experience, because it's flimsy. It's not meant for this sort of work. You need the stability that you get with your bowl gouge. Now, that, if you like, highlights the actually, I could do a pull cut on here, couldn't I? I'll leave this on for a minute. So that highlights the advantage of a bowl gouge, obviously, for bowls. Okay, I mean, in a relatively short space of time, with a little bit of help from the spindle gouge, and I mean a little bit of help, we've already started to make inroads into this particular blank. Now, there are four, in my opinion. Again, as I say, I'm not a full-time bowl turner. I'm not a full-time turner at all. However, there are four main cuts, in my opinion. There is the pull cut, the push cut, the shearing cut, and the shearing scrape, if you like. Okay, so I will go through those four cuts with you, and the advantage of the pull cut to the push cut and vice versa. Now, with the push cut, you will normally get a better finish, okay? But a pull cut, you can move a lot of wood with a pull cut if done correctly. So again, like with anything, I mean, I've got videos out there. There are loads of videos on YouTube, and the most important, or in my opinion, the best thing you can do as a newer turner is join a club, or befriend a wood turner who's had experience, because then you can ask questions, you can see it, you can see the solution, and it will bring you along in leaps and bounds. I mean, it's great, and I appreciate people watching my YouTube videos, but not everybody can get to a club. But if you can, that has to be the finest way forward, is get to a club and have lessons when you can, face-to-face lessons, whether it be one-to-one or in a group. You will come on much quicker that way. With much
Question for you, Mike.
Yeah.
Tony Eastham, he's a newbie.
Yeah.
Is there a big difference between the 1/2 and the 3/8 bowl gouge?
Right. Okay. An 1/8 of an inch, and I'm not being cynical saying that. That's the 1/2 inch. That's a spindle gouge. Ed Oliver was right. Ed Oliver, for those of you who aren't aware, Ed Oliver said on Facebook, when I put the link to this live, that are we sure that Mike Walt knows the difference between a spindle gouge and a bowl gouge? And obviously I don't. Okay, so that's the 1/2 inch bowl gouge, or the 5/8 bowl gouge in the States, and that is the 3/8 bowl gouge, or the 1/2 inch bowl gouge in the States. One is bigger than t'other. So by definition, the stock is meatier, so there is more stability in that. When I said the 3/8 bowl gouge is basically all you'll ever need, I know 2, maybe 3 pro turners that only use a 3/8 spindle gouge, and maybe a 1 inch in extreme circumstances. But a 3/8 bowl gouge is one of the most versatile tools you'll buy, in my opinion.
Jennifer's Craft and Creations has just come in. Hi, Jennifer Stoughton.
Jennifer Stoughton, good evening and welcome, my dear. Welcome to you.
My view is you've only got the 1 gouge, then get the 3/8.
I'm sorry?
If you've only got 1 gouge, get the 3/8 because it does everything.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Will also do most things, but the 3/8 is more versatile.
Exactly as Pete says there, I think the brilliance, I have a 1/2 inch spindle gouge, because stupidly I've always had a 1/2 inch spindle gouge, and I doggedly used to use it on spindles to do what I was showing you earlier on, to move excess wood, etc. It'll do the job, of course it will, but it doesn't do it as quickly and as easily as a 3/8 bowl gouge. So a 3/8 bowl gouge is, in my opinion, a multi-purpose tool. It can be used on spindles and obviously on bowls. So, you know, personally, I wouldn't buy a 1/2 inch bowl gouge as my only bowl gouge, because I think it is not versatile enough. Sure, it'll get through the bowls for you, that's fine, if that's all you want to do. But if you want to do any spindle work at all, this is a really good meat wood remover, and it can be quite refined. So, you know, it's a great all-rounder, in my opinion. Does that answer that question, hopefully?
Yep.
It does.
Yep.
Quickly though, Dermot Walters says, thanks for all the videos. I was able to turn an 800mm walnut and cherry cannon with your help.
Oh, brilliant. Well done. You're very welcome.
And there's quite a few questions backward and forward about angles.
Yeah, okay. Well,
both Mark and I have answered those in text, but I know yours are slightly different than mine, but pretty much the same as I use. But you just talk on it.
Yeah, sure. This again is, ladies and gentlemen, is the brilliance of Alive, and having these two great lads. I haven't actually formally introduced them, but I'm sure you all know Mark and Pete. They very kindly have been part of my team. Call it that way. We are a team together. for the last, this is the third live that we've done it, the three of us, and it seems to work very well. And the whole idea of doing it this way is that if you have a question, it doesn't matter how silly it seems to you, no questions are silly. What is silly is not asking it. Chirp in on the chat, the lads will pick it up, and it doesn't matter what I'm doing, they will interrupt and I can answer it in virtual real time, allowing for the lag between me and YouTube. Okay, so that's the whole point. So there's some questions. What are the questions then, Pete? Just angles, bevel angles.
Just angles, yeah, and what's our preferred angle and why. Basically, Mark and I have both said what we prefer to use, and it doesn't make any difference whatever you prefer. But
no, exactly. But I think that the main thing is that I'll do a few cuts on this blanket, then I'll put a bowl on, which is a little bit thin, really, because it's been a demo bowl, but I'll try and do what I want to do. The main thing is, when you first get your first bowl gouge, whether it be in a set or you buy it separately, unless things have changed a lot over the last 2 or 3 years, well, 4 years maybe, since I bought a bowl gouge, the standard angle coming from the manufacturer is around the 45-degree mark. And the other thing, which I think it's termed specialist now, you can buy it with the wings ready ground, like I think Glenn Lucas do them, and there are others that do it as well. Because normally when you bought a bowl gouge, it was a straight over grind. The grind was, forget the bevel angle on that, it's very acute on there, but that is a straight over grind. There are no wings on there at all. And so the first thing I did, I'm not using that, was spend ages on the grinder reprofiling, bearing in mind I'd never done it before, and it showed. But the point I'm making is that most standard bowl gouges now come 45 degrees. I think quite a few of them as well come. The starter set from Axminster that I sort of highlighted a few weeks ago, that had a sweatback wings already on it. The big not problem, but the thing is there, whatever grinding system you're using, there is going to be a very small difference in the factory grind to the grind you achieve on your particular sharpening system. It's not going to be many degrees, it might be a degree or two. Don't get hung up about it. A degree or two, I wish my turning relied that heavily on a 1 degree difference in my bevel angle. I'd be a very happy boy, believe you me. So it is an approximation around that area. 1 or 2 degrees either way is not going to make any difference, in my personal opinion, which a lot of people might disagree with. When you sharpen it, I've been prattling on and I've forgotten what the angles, bevel angles, it comes at 45 degrees normally. You can turn an awful lot of stuff with a 45-degree bevel on your bowl gouge. As I said earlier on, as you gain more experience, if you're finding, because you're turning bowls a bit deeper than normal, then what's going to happen is when you come down to this area with a 45-degree bevel, you might have a problem with that transition. So you might need a more acute angle. Well, this is, so I say 55 degrees, and that does me. And if I get a really deep bowl, and let's just say it's got fairly steep sides and I want a nice transition at the bottom, then I would go for my 65 degree with no wings, because it's there for one reason and one reason only. And I will show it when I get it on the lathe. I mean, who needs a lathe? I can just hold things up. When you get down the bottom here, that very acute angle means my handle is nowhere near here, and it's an easy job just to get that transition there. I'm not going to run out of bevel, because that is the biggest thing. The deeper you go with a 45-degree bevel, you have a big chance of not being able to float the bevel anymore as a guide. So you're basically cutting on the tip without any bevel support, and that can cause not just problems, it's very difficult as well to get a decent cut if you haven't got that bevel support. So my advice is stick with what you get to begin with. and then experiment with angles as you gain more experience. That is my personal advice. But it's a very, very personal thing, I think. I don't even bother with the relief now. But as I say, I don't turn hundreds and hundreds of bowls every year. I used to put a little relief angle on there, and that is another way of getting around the bottom of the bowl. If you put that's 55 degrees. If I put a 65 or even a 70 degree relief here, then immediately it's going to give me, it's not going to get in the way. The heel isn't going to get in the way of my transition. There are a lot of different thoughts, but we're talking the newer turner, the beginning turner. Let's not get too technical, otherwise it becomes a bit daunting. I think it's very, very important to learn the basics first. When you've got the basics under your belt, and as I keep harping on about, then you find limitations in certain things, then you can experiment and see what you can do to alter it. That's my opinion, for what it's worth. Anything else while I'm not, while I'm in front of the camera?
On top of it now.
Have you got? If anybody's got anything to add, then please say something to the lads, and they'll relay it to me. Right. Okay. So we'll go back. I think we'll go to. Let's try that one. Yeah. No, that's no good. We'll go to the overhead again. And actually, we'll go to that one. Because you can. No, we won't. We'll go to that one. That's right. The little picture in the top left-hand corner will show my body position as well. Another thing to mention, this, as with many lathes, has a swiveling headstock. Now, there are some that don't have swiveling headstocks. Normally, when I turn a bowl, believe it or not, I do swivel the headstock purely because it's easier. But I don't do it in demos or anything because I don't think it's always fair for the newer turner because they might not have a swiveling headstock. So, you know, you have an advantage immediately. Okay, so what I was doing earlier on was just basically a push cut around the corner, which I'll continue doing and talking as I'm going. As I say, we did about 800 revs, something like that. So the whole idea of this is to get some semblance of shape and get rid of the air. And I'm moving my body round to do that. And I'm only showing you this. I'm not going to do the whole thing, so don't get worried. And then again, you just nibble off the ends.
Glenn from Yorkshire Grits in.
Oh, good evening, Glenn. How are you? Hope you're well, mate. The other thing as
James
well.
Wood Revival's in. Sorry.
Oh, Jim. Good evening, Jim, and welcome, my friend. Now, although I've been doing this, I'm not really doing what I call a proper pull cut, push cut, because I'm not standing behind. This, in my opinion, is a push cut, where I'm standing behind, and as the name suggests, I'm pushing the bowl gouge through the wood. I'm taking a big cut there. That was sort of over half, and I don't know if the camera picks it up. It's a very clean cut, okay, the push cut, and you can still get rid of quite a lot of wood. Now this is a 3/8 bowl gouge, and I'm taking big cuts with it, so it's more than adequate to do that job. Now that was a push cut. Now if I want to get rid, it's not quite so easy because there's a bit of air there. If I want to get rid of lots of wood, and I'm not bothered about the surface, and I'm not doing this to, let me go to the camcorder properly. I'm not doing this to say what a clever fella I am, but you can, hopefully if I zoom in there, you can see there's a pretty good surface there. And I wasn't being sensitive with it, let's put it that way. Okay, so that was with a push cut. Now, if we go to a pull cut, and what is a pull cut? A pull cut is having the handle low. Now, the beauty of these is because I got my tailstock up, you see, I can lengthen the handle, which is what I want to do. Get rid of that a little bit more. Okay. Now a pull cut is where you drop the handle and you are cutting just to the left of the nose, but on the wing, obviously, but you're cutting, you're pulling through. And you can actually, there's quite a bit of air there anyway, but you can see how low my handle is, and I'm just going to be pulling it around, letting the wood come onto the wood, onto the wing. But I'm pulling.
Quick question for you, Mike.
Yeah.
Benjamin's asked, do you ever use a bowl gouge to hollow out goblets and boxes?
You can do, Ben, but the reason I don't do that is I got used to doing it with a spindle gouge, whether it be the 3/8 or the 1/2 inch. If I'm totally honest with you, the only time I use a bowl gouge when I'm doing a goblet is possibly if it's out of a limb, or I won't use a spindle roughing gouge on a limb, which is uneven, and I'll use my bowl gouge to get it to round, and then I will use my 3/8 spindle gouge. But for shaping, I would still use the bowl gouge if I have it in my hand. I've roughed down and I've done the basic shaping outside, but I tend to, with goblets, I tend to use my spindle gouge, my 3/8 spindle gouge, or indeed my 1/2 inch spindle gouge. Got a mouthful of wood there. The reason I do that is because I've got those tools. If I didn't have a 1/2 inch spindle gouge, and I wanted to hollow out, I would still use my 3/8 spindle gouge for goblets. But you could use this quite easily. The only thing is, I think, and I might be wrong here, it's my again, everything is my opinion. Because the angle of the bevel on my bowl gouge is 55 degrees and sometimes 60, I think I have, on my spindle gouge, I've got a 45 degree and a 30 degree. The 30 degree I only use for doing finials and very fine stuff, but the 45 degree is a great angle for me anyway. And I can use that to do my shaping on a goblet, and I can use it easily to bore a depth hole, and I can also use it to do the hollowing. So a bowl gouge, I think, on a goblet is a bit of overkill, in my opinion. There are those people, and they're quite right if that's what they believe. The bigger the tool, the quicker you can get rid of the wood, the better it is. Well, that's up to the individual, but I don't think you need a bowl gouge to hollow out boxes or goblets. But if you've got one and you want to use it, use it.
Glenn from Yorkshire Grit asks.
Who? Sorry?
Glenn from Yorkshire Grit asks, is that on 1-piece or 2-piece goblets, Mike?
It's on 1-piece, 2-piece, or 3. I do 3-piece goblets as well, Glyn. Yeah, no, on all of them. I've got to ignore that. I think I've got to treat that. Glyn and I are very good friends, unfortunately, and it is absolutely pouring with rain outside. So if you can hear a noise, that's what it is. Right. So yes, the answer to the question again. My answers are very long-winded. You don't need a bowl gouge to hollow out goblet. Can you hear that rain? Anybody? Good grief!
Yeah, just about.
It's hammering it then. Okay.
It's lovely here.
Yeah,
lovely.
It was expensive.
Lovely.
So take lots of them.
in a relatively short space of time, we got quite a bit of wood. This is hard ash. This is dry ash. We've got quite a bit of 3/8 bowl gouge, a few pull cuts, a few push cuts, and we started to get a semblance of shape. But the thing with a pull cut is, as I say, you can really take a lot of wood. But in my opinion, I mean, you're still riding, you're still floating the bevel, using the bevel, whatever. But the surface, I don't know if the camera picks it up, it's not as smooth as if I do a similar big cut. If I get some air, there we go. Now I'm doing a push cut. And immediately you can see the surface on that is much better. And I was still pushing and taking a lot of wood away. So the difference between a push cut and a pull cut is that you will get normally a better surface off the push cut. Now the thing is that, again, as I say, I'm not a bowl turner, but I've seen people like Jimmy Clues who and Stuart Batty especially. Stuart Batty, I don't know if Mark can find the link to it. He has a 2-hour video. Let's come off camera here. He has a 2-hour video, and he's doing a demo for an American wood turning club. And is it the Kennet Valley? Anyway, it doesn't matter. And it's a 2-hour video. And I've watched that video 4 or 5 times, I should think. I mean, from start to finish. I have paused it in between a little bit. But he is going on about the 40-40 grind. In his hands, it's superb. And I'm sure it's great in anybody else's hands. But that man has an amazing ability to teach and obviously to turn. And you want to watch that. Now, I didn't do a 40-40 grind, but I spent quite a few hours doing the technique that he uses. And I don't do, as I say, enough bowls, and I don't put enough practice in. And it's certainly great. Now, he will use a pull cut from about here to there. So basically, let's just say, I mean, I've got to be on a bigger bowl. It's formed the, I'll tell you what, let's not talk in theory. Let's put another bowl on. I will put another bowl on. I don't know why I'm doing that. Sorry. I've got it on I very rarely use worm screws. But for demos, they're great because you can have a couple on at the same time. Right. So, if you
put the link in the chat for that video.
Sorry,
I've put the link in the chat for that video.
Oh, well done, Mark. That's excellent. And seriously, even if you're an experienced turner, well, if you're an experienced turner, I should imagine you've seen it. But it is really well worth the watch. If for nothing else other than the entertainment value, but you will pick up an awful lot there. Now, what
Stuart and Alan, his father, are both worth everything they've done.
Yeah.
So entertaining and such good teachers.
The late, great Alan Batty, who's Stuart's father. Alan Batty was one of the first guys that I watched with his skew. Alan Batty was primarily a spindle turner, a production spindle turner. And with the skew, it was amazing. And his method of teaching was excellent as well, where he blacks out the wood so you can see the cuts and all the rest of it. But just a gem of a man. And Stuart is as good a turner as his dad in a way. He's a different turner, and he was pushing the boundaries. And a lot of things he did and started to do, his dad said, "You can't do that. Tradition has done this." But Stuart pushed the boundaries, and he has developed a different turning style to that of his dad, because things have changed, if you like. Tools have changed. Types of steel that are used have changed, and so on and so forth. So, it's evolved, if you like, but really well worth a watch. And no, he's not paying me for telling you about it. So, no, and I'm not saying in any way that I'm trying to emulate Stuart Batty, but I must say that I have to agree with him on this point, and I'll just zoom in a bit there. Is that? No, it's not. Hang on a minute. I I spent an hour and a half sorting out and automatic focus. Right, let's go to manual. There we go. And one more iris. Let's have a bit more light. Is that better? Good. It's not going to get any better than that. Okay. Now, basically, the push cut, Stuart would start out here. Now you've got a 40-40 grind. This is a 55-degree bevel. So you've got a 40-40. You've got to be out here somewhere. Okay. Actually, I want to pull out. Sorry about this. Okay. So you start in here, and you're out here, and that is really, really awkward, because what happens is you're going to hit your body, so you've got to be standing here. So the first thing is he would use a pull cut to get to this area, if you like, forming whether it's going to be a mortise or a tenon in this case, and the pull cut he would use to there, okay, and just in here, and then immediately go to the push cut, because although his body is here, he's providing pressure behind the bevel, so he's pushing. And although it looks really ungainly, especially in my hands, you do this. And basically, I mean, let's do this properly. Tool rest will be around there a little bit like this. Okay. Now, normally when you're turning with a bowl, your handle is down here. But what you're doing is virtually horizontal. You're on center height, you're cutting on center height, and your tool is horizontal. Okay. Now this is with a 40-40 grind that he was demonstrating, but the system still works, but it's more difficult a little bit without that 40-40 grind. So you engage the cut, and what you're doing is basically coming around with a push cut right the way round to here, and you should be nowhere near your body. You shouldn't be doing this business. So this is the difficult bit, is where you've got to maintain that plane of horizontal plane parallel to the bedways right the way round the cut. Now, if you haven't got a 40-40 grind, what Stuart says, and I agree with him obviously, because I haven't got a 40-40 grind. In other words, 40-40 is the same angle on the wing as the toe. Now, if you use a jig, that angle is more acute, I think. Yeah, slightly more, only a few degrees, but you have to alter your aspect of your tool to maintain the cut. With a 40-40, you don't. Once you've engaged the cut, providing you keep your handle horizontal or parallel to the bedways, and you keep your pressure here, you're not pushing that way, you're not pulling, you're not doing this, you've just got pressure down there, neutral pressure, to keep that on the tool rest, and you come around like so. Well, mere mortals like me don't do that, but I will take a pull cut. I've got to lower my tool rest slightly now because I'm not doing the Stuart Batty. Okay, so let's just say I've formed my tenon, which I have. Okay, so I will use a pull cut to a point to say there. Okay, now I can start to use a push cut. I'm not a great demoer of anything to do with this is why it's nice to have a swiveling headstock. Now I'm doing a push cut. Okay, I'm doing a push cut all the way round the bowl, nice and easy. I'm keeping bevel contact. I'm not pushing on the bevel. I'm not putting pressure on the bevel. I'm using the bevel as a guide to come round that side of the bowl. Now what you need to do here is stop and just move the tool rest so you get a bit of support, and then bevel, pick up the cut,
Mike, could you explain to people where you're looking while
Sorry?
you make that cut, please?
Yeah, when you sorry, that's very very pertinent. Don't mean to say sorry. What am I saying sorry
And
for?
while you're doing that, Mike, can you do it again with an overhead?
Can I? Yeah, okay.
Same cut, but the overhead view.
Yeah, okay. When I'm doing that, I'm not looking here. I'm looking here. I'm looking on the opposite side of the bowl. There's a big where I actually did where I stopped there, my transition. There's a bit of a lump there, but that's what you go back for with your shearing cuts in when you're at my level. You don't do the one cut. When you get that one cut right the way through, it is a wonderful feeling. However, I look here at the shape, and now I can see I've got a bit of a bump there, but that isn't a finishing cut. Okay, let's just get rid of that there. Okay, so we're going to take it from the same part, which is there, because we've done our pull cut. Forget the surface. I'm just talking about the cut itself. Okay, now I can't do that, can I? No, or can I? Hang on a minute. Here we go. Yeah, right. Okay. Handle in the position you would normally turn at, and you need to follow the course of there. Now, I'm already starting to do a little bit of the Stuart Batty recommendation. I'm out here. That's why if my headstock was turned, I'd have it in my body and I could walk around with that on my body. So I need to be in a place where I'm comfortable at the end of the cut. So I've got to lean into the cut, okay, ride the bevel. So I say lift the handle into the cut, and I'm pushing now. I'm not pulling. This is a push cut. And all I'm doing, I'm stopping there for a minute. All I'm doing here, I'm not pulling. All I'm doing there is providing pressure to the tool rest through the bolt gouge. Now, I'm stopping at the edge there. A lot of people say to stop at the edge and just come back with a little cleanup, because then you're not going to be making the edge raggedy. Okay, but bear in mind that's not flat anyway. There's a bit of a gap there, but a bit of a furrow there, which I would come back and finish. But the point I'm making is that the surface, forget the little tool mark there, because that could be, I will show you how I'll get rid of that anyway. The surface is much better than if I was doing this and pulling around. That is basically, in my opinion, that is for stock removal. I'm not looking for finish in any way, just to get rid of stock quickly. But again, unless you're a production turner, unless time is money, why do you have to do it quickly? We're hobby turners, most of us guys. I mean, yes, we do stuff for shows and we do commissions and so on, but time is not crucial. Well, I keep saying this at a risk of sounding really boring. Don't rush it, especially if you're the newer turner, because if you rush it, you'll make mistakes, you'll get catches, and you'll possibly lose interest in the craft prematurely. Take your time, and I'm not preaching, I strongly believe this, take the time to look at what you're doing. In other words, I don't mean turning by looking away. See what you have to do to achieve the result you're looking for. In other words, where's the shaving coming off on your edge? Why is the shaving getting bigger and smaller? Well, the reason for that is you're changing some aspect of your turning style. You're either lifting the handle slightly, you're lowering the handle slightly, you're pushing a bit too much, you're going a bit this way, you're coming off the bevel a bit. You don't need the bevel to burnish the wood. The bevel's there to give you a guide. And if you've got bevel support as opposed to bevel contact, if you understand, you just float the bevel on the surface of the wood, and that is all you need to do. What you need to practice is the way you get from A to B, from the center to the edge, in one smooth motion. And practice makes perfect. I haven't turned a bowl for, I don't know, a couple of months maybe, proper bowl. Not that I ever do proper bowls before Glyn or anybody else says. It's a practice thing. It's a muscle memory thing. And I enjoy turning bowls, but I also enjoy turning a lot of other stuff as well. So that's it. But the point I'm trying to say is that practice makes perfect. Practice improves, if not perfect. That is a method. Okay, the execution might have been a bit suspect, but that is the method, and the theory behind it is the same. It's a case, as I always say, do as I say, not as I do. I don't always do it myself, but I know what I need to do, and that's the difference between a new turner or a beginner turner. They don't know what they need to do to achieve the desired result, and safely as well. They haven't got the experience. When you have experience, you may well know what to do, but doesn't mean to say you can do it every time you turn the lathe on, but you get better at it. As Lee Trevino, the great golfer, said once when somebody told him he's really lucky, he said, you know what, the more hours of practice I put in, the luckier I get. And that really is a good saying, if you like, to work by. So I've got, surprisingly enough, a couple of tool marks. So what we'll do is go to that one. I don't like pictures in pictures, but it does give a little bit of an indication of my wonderful physique, of my body position. Okay. Now the main tool mark here, or tool, is here. Pretty good here at the beginning, and then it's hit a bit of a knot, that's my excuse, and it started to bounce a little bit. So what I want to try and do there is clean that up. Now there are two methods of doing that. One is called the shear scrape, where in actual fact you're not cutting the wood, you are actually scraping the wood. And what you need to do, you need to get as near, you're using the bottom wing, and you have to be very careful that you don't make contact with the top wing. Okay, so what you need to do is to be on center height, or as near as possible, with that bottom wing. And what you need to do, see that little groove there. So the idea, let me turn the lathe off. The idea is to get into your body, get your right foot forward, in my opinion. And then what you need to do is to just touch and keep a very small distance between the wood and the top wing, and literally move like so. So you're scraping. Just back and forth. Now there's no rush, there's a knot there, so it's just this little bit here we're talking about. Nice and light.
Change the camera, Mike.
Sorry?
You change the camera.
Change the camera.
Yeah, it's not a great view from there.
How's that?
That's better.
Yeah,
Yeah, but you can't see.
no, you're too far around, aren't you?
No, you can't see.
Just put on the Pro Edge and just carry as you are.
Yeah, do this. If I do that one, you can see the idea.
Yeah. Yeah,
What I'm doing here is literally just engaging the bottom wing and doing a shear scrape. I can't do this bit here because it's a knot, but that had a little groove, a little valley in it, and I think you'll find now, yeah, that valley is gone by shear scraping. Now the other method is a shear cut. and that's where you drop. I'm going to get a fresh edge. The other thing, of course, in all these things, whether it be shear scraping, pull cutting, push cutting, or whatever, keep a sharp edge. And that's the beauty of the double-ended gouges. I've got a nice fresh edge. Okay, so it is, I've got to go to the other one now to show you the body of it. It is very low, okay, cutting above centre, if you like, and you're using this part of the wing, okay. Now this is where it's very important when you're sharpening a bowl gouge that you don't get a dip in the wing, because then you've got 2 points of contact. But that's for another video. Well, I've got plenty of videos on that sort of thing about sharpening and the sort of profile that you need on your wings to get the best results. So again, I just want to clean up around here. We have an inclusion there. But all I'm doing, I'm dropping the handle and I'm riding the bevel here. I'm riding my left wing bevel. Very light, no pressure whatsoever. Lift the handle until you engage and just bring it round. And you'll see the shavings coming off of my hand. Very fine. Now that is different to a pull cut because I'm not taking massive amounts of wood. I'm actually presenting this cutting edge at approximately 45 degrees to the surface of the spinning wood. And as I've said before, most people will know anyway, if you present a cutting edge to a spinning piece of wood at approximately 45 degrees, you're going to get a cut. You slice the fibres. You aren't going to be scraping. You're going to get a shaving, as I've just proved there. So again, low, I've got my right foot back, left foot forward, nice and balanced. I'm just putting pressure down through the tool into the tool rest for stability. Ride the bevel, lift the handle. We want to be cutting just to the left of the nose and no pressure whatsoever. Pick up the cut and follow the contour of the bowl. You can see that the shavings are nice and light, and the surface should be pretty good. And that's even going over this little inclusion here. It's quite a nice smooth surface there. And again, you just alter the tool rest a little bit and carry it round here. I'm actually taking too much there. Now one more. And what I'm doing here as well is improving the surface ready for sanding. I'm refining the shape as well. But the main point, I've got a little divot there now because I'm trying. Sorry, my headphones are falling off. Any excuse, eh? You're trying to improve the surface, and that's what this cut does. It just gives fine shavings and gives you a nice finishing surface ready for abrasion. Very, very fine shavings. So we're basically on about methodology there, not so much the full cut all the way through. So that right.
I know it's difficult to do now, so not now, but at some point, can you do a close-up view of that for Eric Winkler? You couldn't quite see how you're presenting that. I say not now because it's difficult to change the cameras.
Yeah.
Timothy Wilson's got a question.
Yeah, go on.
He's just finished a bowl out of view. And
sorry, start again. Sorry, start again. My earphones fell off.
Timothy Wilson.
Yeah. Hi, Tim.
He's just finished a bowl of you.
Yeah, lovely.
Catches in the bottom of the bowl.
Mm-hmm.
How can you stop that happening again? It doesn't say how deep it was. That makes a big difference.
Go through the bottom of it. No. Do what I do. If you join the funnel club, you've got no bottom of bowl to worry about, Tim. No. What basically earlier on, what I was saying about the bevel, I don't know how deep your bowl is. If it's a deep bowl, then the reason for that could very well be that you are running, you're losing your bevel contact. The other thing as well, when you get into the bottom of a bowl, if it's a deeper bowl, you almost have to, as you're approaching. I haven't got a bowl deep enough, but again, if I can show you on this blank here, if you're going around here and you're going on, before you get to that middle, you almost have to lift and go in. That's exaggerated, but the problem you have is that, and I've seen it done where somebody is approached, because if you're coming this way, you're taking the shaving off the left of the nose on your left wing. Excuse me. And I've actually seen it happen where someone's gone in and they get to this area and they wonder why they're getting this judgery, and they're actually cutting on the right wing. They're not maintaining the same cut. And apart from being quite dangerous, it's happened to me in the early days where I thought, what the heck is happening? I'm getting judgery and I'm getting all this sort of movement, and you're getting those ridges and some really nice Robert Sorby spiraling tool spirals in the middle of the bowl at the centre. And that's what was happening. I was actually transferring. How the hell I didn't get a massive catch, I don't know. I transferred from the left wing, and as I'm coming round, I've transferred my cut to the right wing. Could be that.
There's kind of a roll of the bolt gauge in your hand to keep that bevel angle as it goes down the curve.
Exactly, because if you go in, let me put the other bowl on.
Could also be as you're losing bevel support, you could be actually on the tip.
Yes, that's what I mean. You can either be on the tip, or you could, in actual fact, be on the wrong wing. Because the thing is, let me change the bowl blank. Do you really want to see me change the bowl blank? I'm here. So I'm not out of view completely. The thing is that so many, if you don't do videos, that's fine. That's not a prerequisite at all. But what I found extremely handy before I even considered doing anything on YouTube, and my wife called me a narcissist because I was filming myself turning. And the reason I was doing that wasn't to look how good I am turning. The reason for me filming myself was when I played it back, I could see what I was doing wrong. And I could also see what I was doing right. I could see when I was getting a nice shaving, let's say, of a bowl, and then all of a sudden things would go a little pear-shaped, and I could zoom in on the software, on any editing software, and I can slow it right down, and I can see what happened. That's how I know what I was doing on that occasion. It wasn't for more than maybe a second, but I'd actually transferred the shaving, such as it was coming off the right of the nose. And the main reason, as Pete said earlier on, I hadn't turned to maintain contact. I was doing this. So I'm starting there and I'm going round. I don't know if it'll even show it there, but I'll go to the camcorder now and let's zoom in. That's pretty. Right. Yeah, that's good. There we go. Now this is a demo bowl, and it's getting not very thin, but it's getting a little thin. Now, what I was saying to you I was doing. Now, the other thing is there are two schools of thought here too. When you're turning a bowl, you've started turning here and you're turning down here. When you get to there, you're a long way off the tool rest. So turn the tool rest in, okay? Now, there's a school of thought that says that doesn't give you much advantage. Well, I have to disagree, because if I make a mark on here, and I'm not a bowl turner, as I say, if I make a mark there, okay, that is where I'm going to place my cutting edge, okay, with the tool rest in this orientation, square onto the wood, yeah? Okay, so that's where I'm cutting here, okay? Look how far I am. I'll tell you what, proof of the pudding, I might be proved wrong here, I haven't actually done this, this just came to me. So I am now, from tip to there, almost 4 inches hanging over, just under 4 inches I'm hanging over the tool rest. Now, if I turn the tool rest in, like so, I am now cutting there. My point of contact on the tool rest is, where's the ruler? In the middle there, is about 3.5. So doing that has given me another 1/2 inch of support, if you like, or a 1/2 inch less of my tool hanging over the tool rest. Now, as I say, with a bowl like this, I know Pete turns a lot of bowls. I know. Well, I don't think Wayne's here. He's got a premiere tonight, isn't he?
No, his premiere was earlier, so he's probably still in the chat.
Yeah, well, Wayne is a master bowl turner, in my opinion. He's a master at most of what he does, which makes me sick, but there we go. If you were turning a bowl like this, Wayne, if you're there, or anybody else who is primarily a bowl turner, I mean, I would, one that deep, I would most probably go to my bowl rest, but I still would turn my rest in, and the bowl is 3 3/4 inches deep at this moment, and it would go down a little bit more. So the bowl turner, you bowl turners out there, would you agree with me that you would do that?
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
If the bowl is 3 inches in under, I wouldn't bother.
No, I agree.
3 inches and over, then I would bother.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
It's all about depth.
That's good. No, that's good, because, you know, at the end of the day, if you're pulling out here, it's okay here, no problem there at all, but you're getting further and further and further and further away as you're going around, and, you know, you're quite a bit there. If it was again, if it was a 1/2 inch bowl gouge, it would still be protruding the same amount over the tool rest, but you've got that much more stability because it is a beefier piece of metal. Now, again, I'm not going to do this as a hero move, but you can see, I'm sure, the disadvantage on a bowl of a spindle gouge. You know, you're going around here, forget the angle of the bevel, that doesn't matter, it's 45 degrees, it's okay. But if you were out there, 4 inches on there, 4 inches on stock, that thin, or that much thinner, you can see that you're going to have stability issues. And again, for the newer turner, my opinion is, if you feel, if it's like speed of work, if you feel more comfortable turning at 500 RPM as opposed to 750 RPM, there's not a problem with that. What you have to do is develop a turning style which allows you to turn at that speed. In other words, you have to travel through the wood slower. And I've done this on other demos, and I've seen it done by other far better turners than me, that it's not the speed that you turn, it's the speed at which you try to pass through the wood and cut the wood relative to the speed of the wood. Okay, the species does come into it a bit as well, whether it's a hardwood, a softwood, whatever. But I was going to show something. It's a little bit conceited, actually, but I will show you afterwards.
Shay in the chat is agreeing that turning the tool rest in, and Shay is another experienced bowl turner.
Who's this?
Yeah.
Shay, BB turner.
Oh, Shay, yes. Oh, yeah. I agree. I don't know what you guys. I mean, I've always had a bowl bowl turning rest, but I very rarely use it. I'm
I've got one
fortunate.
somewhere. I don't ever use
Yeah,
it.
I've got the robust one now, but I used to have that really god awful cast iron jobber you got with your you got with the AWVSL 1000 in the early days. The white lathe from Axminster. You could buy a bowl rest, and it was terrible. It was more like a barbecue skillet, you know. But
I've got a custom-made stainless steel one, and I've got to admit it is lovely.
yeah,
But it's
yeah.
only good for bigger bowls.
Yes,
Wouldn't
yeah.
use it for a smaller bowl. There's no
No,
need.
no, there's no need. I think
Bowl
what
shape is also very important.
yes, indeed,
A
yeah,
lot of new turners will go straight down the side, 90-degree turn across the bottom.
yeah, that's right. There's almost a corner to it.
Yeah.
Very, very difficult to do that. So I don't know why new turners tend to do it, because it's probably the most difficult cut you can do. But a smooth transition corner to the bowl is much easier to follow.
Yes, yeah, I agree, totally agree. The thing is with anything, as I keep saying, it always sounds that I'm trying to get out of answering a question, but it is very much personal preference. But I've learned from watching other people far more experienced than me, and then put that into practice. And sometimes it works for me, sometimes it doesn't. And it's a big. I don't think you ever stop learning. Not just in wood turning, in many crafts, you're always gaining experience, obviously, by mere fact you're doing it. But I think that it's very important to remember, as a newer turner, not to be confused too much by all the different opinions and suggestions and advice that you're given. Basically, know how to use the tools safely, and then work on your technique, and don't try any hero moves. And when I do my next live, which will be on the skew chisel, that is especially important. You don't need to grab hold of any of your tools as if your life depends on it. You need a firm grip, not a white knuckle grip, a firm grip. Basically, a big yank, you can get it out of your hand. I mean, there is a bit of resistance, but you're not, that's worth £1 million. You're not having that. That then immediately starts to tense your body up. It reduces your ability of flexibility and smooth movement because you're tense. And if you get a catch, whether it be with a bowl gouge, whether it be with a skew, whether it be with a parting tool, it doesn't matter what, the harder you're holding on and the more you're gripping for grim death, the bigger that catch is going to be, because it's magnified, because you are resisting what the wood on the lathe is trying to do, and that's get it out of the way. Because you've got a catch, you're not cutting anymore, you've dug into it, so it wants to spit you out. And the harder you're holding onto that tool, the bigger that spit is going to be, and you're going to feel it. And that's especially true of the skew chisel. You really want little pressure on there. You get a catch, you'll hardly notice it. You notice it, but it won't be a mega. If you're holding on too tight, it becomes a mega catch, and that's just reality, if you like. So, I can't think, unless anybody has. Was it Eric that asked for a different view? I'll tell you what I can do. It might not be as clear as possible.
I think one of the main things you've shown tonight, Mike, is
that I'm rubbish. Sorry, yeah, go on.
Too generous to say. It's the versatility of the bowl gouge.
Yes, it is a very versatile tool. Of that,
basically, you've got stock removal with roughing cuts.
Yeah.
Fine finishing cuts. You've got shear scraping, pull cuts, push cuts. It really is one of the biggest all-round tools that we've got in our arsenal.
Yeah, it is. You can do an immense. Well, that's the best view ever. That is.
You will spend more time sharpening the bowl gouge than any other tool.
Yeah.
Simply because you will cut a lot more shavings with a bowl gouge than you will with any other tool.
Yeah.
No.
You'll have a lot more wood travelling over the edge on a bowl gouge than any other tool.
Was it Tim that asked the question, or Eric that asked the question about looking, seeing the cut?
Eric, we're also closer to the shear cut.
Eric, was it? Did you say?
Yeah, Eric.
Okay, I'll try and sort that out for you now, Eric.
Ed Oliver's turned up.
Oh God! Hello, Ed. I'm just welcome-ish. I'm just going through the use of my. Can you tell me, Ed? Is that the spindle gouge, or is that the bowl gouge, or is that the bowl gouge and that's the spindle gouge? I really don't know.
You have a spindle gouge at the beginning, which was a different shape again.
Yeah, I can't remember. Can I what, Pete? Sorry?
You have a spindle gouge at the beginning that was a bit different again.
Yeah, I just don't know. Yeah. Or is that the spindle gouge? Is that the spindle gouge, Ed? Ed Oliver said to me, for those of you that weren't here at the very beginning when I said it, Ed Oliver made a comment on social media of all things, so the whole world can see it, that he wasn't basically sure that Mike Wall knew the difference between a spindle gouge and a bowl gouge. And he was right. I didn't know there was a difference, to be honest with you. Just thought one was bigger than the other. Okay. Yeah, I got a decent edge on there. So this is for Eric, who's most probably got home now.
Oh, he's still in the chat.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Right, so we have to do an Ed Oliver now. We've got to alter all the cameras just because we can. Is that?
Yep.
No, it's not really, is it? It's not very clear. Hang on, I got to alter the this very briefly. See if we can alter the focus off manual, automatic. Has that gone any clearer?
That looks fine.
That looks pretty clear, yeah.
Is it? You've got to go on manual, otherwise it starts swimming.
Yeah.
You see, one question from Eric has ruined my hour-and-a-half setup. But that's what it's all about. Now, can you... The only trouble is with this, can I show... Yes, can I... Yeah.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're basically doing is just cleaning up the flute, just because I can. Okay. What we're doing is a shear cut as opposed to a shear scrape. It was a shear cut that Eric wanted to see. Yeah? So
I think it was both, to be honest.
Both. Okay. I'll do the shear cut first because I'm in that position now. So I'm actually cutting above center. I've got the handle really low. What I'm doing here is wanting to just engage the cut at 45 degrees, or as near as I can get it, on just to the left of the nose, on the left wing, to get that finishing cut. Very, very light pressure. Just pick the, once you get that cut, you can see the shavings, get nice fine shavings. Now if you want to go even, you can go a little bit higher and go a little bit nearer the nose and even less pressure, and just very, very slightly.
Oh, Eric, that's a shear cut, so the wood's coming down and it's falling onto the edge, so it's being cut by the blade.
Exactly. That's what I said earlier, and you can see there that. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my headphones. You can see there a pretty smooth surface, so it's a good finishing cut as well. Unless, and I'm not blowing smoke up Ed Oliver's trousers, unless you're Ed Oliver or Wayne the Woodturner, and indeed Mark, and I'm sure Pete as well, if you do establish a good push cut right the way through your cut in one movement, you will alleviate the need to do what I'm doing now. Okay, because you will have a good surface. And if you're confident enough, if you've got a little ridge there, for example, and you're confident enough to feather in the cut and just cut from where you need to, from there to there, leaving a perfect surface, then that's the way to go. But this way, it allows you to do that, but it is not a complete cut. You're doing areas that need a bit of TLC.
I
Now
might
the
get
other,
1 in 10 right, but the rest of them I do whatever cut I need.
yeah, I'll show the shear scrape in a second. And again, please, everybody that doesn't know me very well, not many people do know me very well, but I truly believe that there is no magic formula for anything. Everybody does what they find works for them. If it works for you and it is safe, then it's the way for you to do that job. Being that Ed's in, I mentioned this. I mean, I've got a lot of time for Ed's. I've got a lot of time for him as a person. I don't like him at all, but I have to admire his wood turning ability. Quite often, quite often, I am joking, people. Ed and I are good mates, believe me. Ed will often do completely the opposite, which tradition dictates, i.e., cutting downhill. You should never cut uphill. It's rubbish. If you get a good cut, a good clean surface, cutting uphill is not a problem. And Ed's proved it on a few points. The point is, it is easier and more likely to give a good result if you cut downhill, because you're cutting supported fibres. And I won't go into the old thing of straws and what have you, but you're cutting supported fibres. Because don't forget, when you're cutting a bowl, you've got end grain, side grain, end grain, side grain, end grain, side grain. You've got end grain both sides of the bowl. Yeah. Here's your bowl. You've got end grain, end grain, and then you've got side grain. So you've got 2 bits of end grain coming round each revolution. So it's going to cut slightly differently anyway to your side grain, which it always does. But the point Ed is making is, if you've got a good technique and your cut is good, it doesn't matter if you cut uphill or downhill. And it doesn't. It is just...
And some woods will insist that you cut the other way as well.
Yeah, indeed. I think a lot of it, when you get a bit more experience as well, and you're doing a bit of experimentation, some woods will, as Pete just said, will actually benefit from doing things against the traditional way of doing things, because the nature of the beast. I mean, I've been very fortunate to cut a lot of burls, oak, turn a lot of oak burrs, and that grain is, obviously it goes everywhere. And it's rock hard in places, and you get the sapwood is a bit softer, and so on and so forth. So you might do things which are completely off the book, but that particular piece demands a little bit of innovation, if you like, and a bit deviating off the path. So don't be afraid of that, but get a bit more experience under your belt first, in my opinion. Get to know the tools you've got. Get to know how to sharpen them. That is the most important thing. I mean, I haven't a lot of turning, but I've used two edges here because that's where I like to work. Normally, I'd go straight. I would work with the tool for 2 or 3 passes and then put another edge on it. Apart from the fact that it's safer, it's actually a much more pleasant experience as well, because you get a far better cut. That goes without saying. So I think, apart from just showing that shear scrape again for Eric, which I will do now. There we go. Okay, so where we've done the shear cut there, the shear scrape is, you want to be cut, let's put the tool rest right down there. You want to be cutting on your, what will be your under edge, if you like, the lower wing, okay? And just not so critical to be right to the, just to the left of the nose. You want to be that little bit there. Okay, so that's where you want to be shear scraping. Now what you want to do, you turn it to such a way that you're just your right hand wing or top wing is just short of touching the wood here. And you want to be on center height with your cutting edge. So that's why I have to raise. And don't be afraid to hold your tool rest. I know where the center is. I want to be horizontal with the tool there and then hinge it up. What is the problem in doing that? Is it not professional? I don't think so. I don't think there is a professional or unprofessional way of lifting a tool rest to find whether you're on centre or not. Because what will happen is you if you're doing a normal cut, you'll start your cut, then I've got to drop it a bit. That's not a problem. Okay, so we were on centre height. We want to just come in with that top wing just away from the wood and follow the contour of the wood. Very light pressure. You can see a semblance of they're shorter shavings, if you like, but you are literally scraping. You're not slicing, but you can still get a very good surface. And in many ways, it's easier to control than the slicing cut. Just stop and have a look. Just this area here, and again, hopefully it'll show it's a pretty good surface. So those are two methods. I quite like this method, actually. I don't know why. But again, if I'm in the zone, as they say, if I ever get in the zone, it's too high now, but I still get away with it. Look, you can do that. You can get your pull cut and get very nice fine shavings as well. And apart from actually giving you a good result, it's quite a nice feeling to think you got it right, especially when you got, I don't know, is it 10 people now watching? So, as I keep saying, a lot of it is very personal taste. And the other thing is as well, when you're doing a demo, don't forget to put your safety glasses on. Okay, I forgot to put them on. These are toughened, not quite as tough as...
Leon W is asking, is that method you just demonstrated better than using a scraper?
It's another method. I quite often, I'm a great exponent, as you know, of negative rake scrapers and indeed standard scrapers if that's what you want to go for. But I think if you can do something with the one tool in your hand, why go to another one? It is possibly a little easier to use a negative rate scraper than doing what I've just described there, purely and simply because you've got to learn how to do it. It's not dangerous if you take it sensibly. It just takes practice, like everything does. The beauty, if you like, of a negative rate scraper is you have to be pretty ham-fisted to get a catch. And it is a very quick, a very shallow learning curve with a negative rate scraper. And I love them. Yes, I do. But I'm one of these traditionalists, not necessarily round and brown, but I get an immense amount of personal pleasure when I get a cut right with a traditional tool, i.e. if four cuts with I wish I could do the three basic cuts with a skew chisel as confidently as I do use the bowl gouge. And I keep saying I don't use the bowl gouge on bowls that often compared to other stuff that I do. So, and I did it there, not because I'm clever, because it is, I've spent quite a few years doing it. But a negative rate scraper, I could pick that up on day one and get a good result from that. So, it's a difficult question. I and many others like me do not depend on our turning, thank God, for a living. So, before you say anything, Ed, I have the luxury, and others have the luxury, of being able to experiment with things. And if you don't use it, you don't use it. It's not lost me any money. It's just given me a bit more experience to pass on to somebody.
Eric says, thank you very much for showing him.
My pleasure.
But he's also asked, do you use the same method inside the bowl?
No.
No, it's slightly different.
I personally, the inside of a bowl You can do both those methods. Well, you can't. No, you can't use a shear scrape so much with a bowl gouge, in my opinion. You can certainly do a shear cut, but you need to be very careful.
Very easy to get a catch, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll just come out of camera a minute. I'll just change the bowl back again. If I do any more demos on something similar, I'm gonna have to turn another bowl. I'm running out of bowl. I'll put a bigger one on.
It's all right, Mike. I'm sure Ed will turn a bowl for you and send it to you.
Yeah, well, like he did with the yeah, that one, yeah, because it has a nice profile to it. I don't even know that's turning. No, it's not even true, that one. Okay, that's been on the shelf for God knows how long. The inside, there's a big crack in there as well. The inside of a bowl, you can use that method. You can use both methods, but I'll be honest with you, I would not recommend that to the newer turner. I'm not even happy doing that. Not that I'm brilliant, but I don't like. There's too much to go wrong. You can't see. Sorry. There's too.
When it goes wrong very, very quickly.
Can I ask a question, please, of my pit crew? I was carrying on there, and I was on the wrong camera.
We let you be because you
did
said
either
earlier,
you or Pete say anything? Did you?
No, we let you because earlier you said nobody needs to see me change a bowl.
No, yeah, but I was already starting to talk. I did actually, so I apologise. But I was already starting to present the tool to the wood, and I thought, hang on a minute.
In the best, most joyous way I could say, get on with it, man.
No, I don't. Okay.
Change camera.
I will change camera. I'm going to change it to that because I got to have a quick vape. Sorry, people. The pit crew are starting to rebel, and I'm not having it.
Well, then, if anybody does want to support Mike and the channel, there's a link to buy me a coffee at the top of the chat. And it would be appreciated. It's not necessary, but it does help. And it's better than doing it through the super chat because we don't pay as much to YouTube for it.
I can see
Ed Oliver, if you're still listening, I have a feeling there might be 2 earworm pit crew who are going to become suddenly free soon.
I can still hear, although I'm vaping.
Oh, can you hear us still? Oh, it's that thing.
As if you didn't know. Yeah, okay. Right. I'm going to change the face again. I must say, I personally thoroughly enjoy both Pete and Mark's company, obviously all your company as well, but they make my job a lot more enjoyable and a lot easier. And before Ed says anything, I don't do a very good job anyway, but it's made that a little bit better with Mark and Pete on board because they are keeping an eye on the chat and they can relay to me any pertinent questions that they don't answer or someone else doesn't answer in the chat, so you can have the answer straight away. And like Eric's asked this question now, I'd most probably have missed that question if I was here on my own. So, you know, it's their fault, Eric, that I'm actually able to show you this now. Okay,
there is another question when you've done that, but do that one first.
Yeah, okay. So I'm not happy using this bowl for this because it is not running particularly true. So I wouldn't be using either of these cuts on a bowl like that because I don't need to. I need to get everything true first before I would use it. So hang on. If I can get a part of it without it blowing up. I can make a cut, you see. Right, that there's a little bit there which is sort of, I think, is now, yeah, that's fair enough. Okay, so we could just use that little area there just to show you, Eric. If you wanted to clean that up, which you wouldn't need to because it's perfect. If you wanted to clean that up, you could use Now, bowl turners are going to say to me, yeah, you can do that, it's easy. I'm not happy doing it because I don't do it. I use the inside of the bowls, I chicken out and use a negative rate scraper should I need it on the very rare occasion. You can, I will turn this right down because I'm not in the market for hero moves. And it's not an edited video where I can do slow motion and make it look really good. Okay, so if we employ, you can do a scrape-ish. I'm getting a bit of a shaving there, so I'm employing the same sort of technique where really I'm engaging a bit more bevel than I would like. In other words, I'm not just riding the bevel very lightly, I'm almost scraping. Because scraping isn't a problem. So yes, the answer is you can use it this way because you've got the trailing edge at the bottom there. My top wing is way away. The big problem you have here is that you've got a convex curve profile, rather convex dipping concave profile to the bowl. So the chances are greatly increased of you doing this as opposed to when you are working on a convex profile. So it's not inherent without its risks, not risks, but its possibilities to go wrong. But to do what I'm doing now is not a problem. And I'm doing it slow, so you can see I'm still getting a half decent shaving, and I'm able to follow through. What tends to happen is, as you're coming up here, you are altering the aspect of the cutting edge or the scraping edge, whatever, to the bowl and not moving it enough. And what happens is then you get caught up on yourself. I don't know if the more experienced bowl turners out there would agree or disagree with that comment.
I agree.
I think you lend yourself you lend yourself to a little bit more problem on the inside of a bowl using that method. If you use a scraper, a negative rate scraper or any scraper, providing you present it correctly, you stand far less chance of getting a catch. I actually had the fortune of doing that on a very early video of mine, and I was cleaning up the inside of the bowl using that method. And I was, I don't know, 500-600 rows, really great stuff, and it was going well. And I decided to go back and forth for some stupid reason, which is quite easy to do when you're on the outside of a bowl. And when I went one way and I came back the other way, I must have altered, obviously, the presentation of the tool to the wood, and it caught, and the bowl just disappeared, and I was left with air, no bowl, and a bit of a mortise, a bit of a tenon left in the chuck. So, yeah.
Ed has just confirmed. He says, yeah, it's not a cut that he does.
No, that's fine. And again, not blowing smoke up Ed Oliver's trouser leg, but if Ed doesn't do it, and Ed is one of the turners who's, let's put it this way, he's very flamboyant, and he's built like a brick outside toilet, but his technique is very, very finessed, and he will have a go at anything, providing it's safe. Even if it's not safe, to prove it's not safe, he'll do it. So if Ed says that, and Pete just agreed, I'm sure, and Mark did as well, and I'm sure other people out there agree, if you're a newer turner, even if you're not a newer turner, more experienced turner, it's not worth the risk. Especially, you spent all that time on the outside of the bowl, you've sanded it, you've put your finish on it, you can shave in it, you've got such a lovely finish, you haven't got any tool marks on the outside, and then you take a risk on the inside of the bowl. Forget going through the bottom, but you're taking a risk. When you've got a scraper, you can do that in much more safety. I don't see the point in taking the risk, and it is a little bit more risky than doing it on the outside of the bowl. Another long answer to a very short question. Any more questions, my good
Yes,
people?
there is.
Oh, good. Carry on.
Mark Whittington, as a new
Evening, Mark.
turner,
Yeah,
been turning a bowl this weekend. Some of the cuts were making the bowl gauge bounce on and off the wood.
right.
He doesn't know what he was doing different with these cuts. What can cause this? My guess would be the tool movement is too fast and he's creating spirals to bounce off. But there's other things. It doesn't say whether it's inside or outside either.
Right, okay. Let's say it's on the inside of the bowl, which I would assume it is, because that's where it normally happens. The reason for that basically is, in my opinion, two main reasons. You're either going through the wood too quickly for the speed, because don't forget, when you get to the middle of the bowl, or get to the center of the bowl, that wood is turning exponentially a lot slower than the rest of the bowl. The nearer the middle you get, the slower the wood gets. So a lot of people are thinking, well, I've nearly got there now, let's keep going. And they keep going at the same speed that they're cutting through the wood at the beginning of the cut, where the wood is spinning at its fastest. So obviously you then start to push the tool through the wood and not allowing the wood to come down onto the edge. That is the crucial thing to remember. It doesn't matter if you're turning at 50 RPM or 500 RPM, the speed at which you go through that wood is going to impact the result. And if you get that bouncing, I guess, unless it's a very deep bowl, I guess the reason is that you are not, either your tool isn't as sharp as it could be, and also you are traveling too quickly for the RPM of the wood. And that happens, that last sort of, that sort of distance. Well, funny enough, where that little ring is in there, basically, just maybe a little bit further out than that, from there to the middle is where you start getting that bouncing and that funny bit, because you're still going at the same speed you were doing here. And then you get to the middle and it starts to react. So it could be two or three things, but I would bet that it's to do with speed of wood compared to the speed of your cut.
The other
And
common one would be if it's going thin and you take the centre out as well as the outside, then you get a flexing in the outside, which can cause it.
Yeah. That's another thing. I mean, I suppose I should have covered that as well. When you're turning a bowl, try to do the majority of the taking away of the wood on the edge of the bowl while you've got a fair bit of mass left in the middle. Because as Pete just said, especially on bigger bowls, physics takes over. You're going to get flexing. So if you start taking it down evenly all the way through, and you come up here to do your finishing cut, what you think, as soon as you put that bevel to the wood, you're going to start flexing the wood ever so slightly, but you don't need much pressure to do that. But if you've got mass in the middle, that's why you see a lot of turners, me included, will do that. You leave a sort of a hub in the middle to do. If you're going thin, if you're going fairly thick, that's not so important. But if you're going fairly thin, say half as thin as that, then you're going to definitely need support. So you go down in steps, basically, a bit similar to when you're doing a hollow form. You work from the top to the bottom. Because a lot of people have made this mistake, me included, where you just, there's a bit of a lump there. I'll get rid of that. And you've done all the finishing cuts and everything, and you go to do it, and you just can't control it because it's just, the wood is actually moving against your, especially if you put too much pressure or you don't want much pressure on the bevel either,
Comes back to that old basic that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. So the harder you're pressing on the wood, the further it's trying to move away from you.
Yeah.
And it'll rebound back. That's where you get the bounce.
Yeah, that's very true. I don't know how many people are left, actually. I was going to cover something I forgot. I don't know.
You've still got 163 watching.
Oh, okay. Then there's enough people here to do that. Hope there's some newer turners there that will benefit by this. I'm just going to go to the that one there. And I've got to zoom out a little bit, just a tad. No, that's the wrong one. D. That's the wrong one as well. Hello.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, talk amongst yourselves, people. This is the one I want. Come back a bit. Okay. The other thing is this. How do you hold your bowl gouge? With your left hand. Ed's got a... I keep mentioning Ed because it's good he's in. If he's not in, I would have mentioned it anyway. As I say, I'm not a bowl turner. Ed turns a lot of bowls. The thumb. Yeah? The dreaded thumb. That can cause problems as well because inadvertently you're redirecting the direction of travel of your tool because you've got, if you can hold it like that, Ed reckons it's better, and I personally do as well for what it's worth. But this left hand, this little left hand here, that left hand is there for no other reason other than putting downward pressure through the tool to the tool rest to stabilize it on the tool rest. Now, Mark made a very important point, and that's what led me to think I forgot to say this. I should have done this in the very beginning. When you present your tool, there are three basic ways, I suppose, that people will hold, two basic ways they'll hold. It's either overhand, like so, okay, which is not a problem, I'll use that, and there's underhand, like so, not a problem, I'll use that as well sometimes, okay. Now, if you're turning a bowl, the most important thing is that you have absolutely no input with your left hand into the direction of your tool. All you want is pressure, downward pressure. If you use that, then whatever pressure you put in that way with your thumb, you have to counterbalance with your fingers in whichever grip you've got. As long as you counterbalance any pressure that way with pressure that way, then you're on a winner, if you like. What you're doing, you're presenting, you're putting downward pressure onto the fulcrum point of your tool. If you do it that way, that is the best way to do it, but it's damned uncomfortable, where you just lay the flat of your hand on top there, and you're not going that way, you're not going this way, you're just putting downward pressure, but it's quite uncomfortable. And if you use the overhand grip, the same thing. Your tool is traveling through that part of your hand, and you only want pressure there. A lot of people, me included, used to put your thumb out here. Well, what's your thumb going to be doing? It's going to be pushing it that way. It's going to be pushing it that way, out the way. It's okay if whatever pressure you're putting in that direction is counteracted by that, but far better to do that and just have downward pressure through your palm of your hand down to the wood if you want to use that method. Stuart Batty does this. I have to lengthen this a bit. When he's doing the inside of a bowl or anything, outside of a bowl, whatever, he never touches the tool rest at all. It's just downward that way. Two fingers. And these three fingers are just resting there. There's no pressure. And any pressure that they are exerting is being counteracted by my thumb. It's just this way, just there. That's all it's doing. And if I let go here, it's got to go down this way. And that's what I'm doing. I'm counteracting. I'm not doing anything with regards to direction with that grip. So if you can get used to using that grip, it's the easiest grip to use because you haven't got to think about, oh right, I'm putting that much pressure with my thumb, I've got to counteract that with these fingers back here, and if I use the underhand, the same thing, my thumb is pushing there. That, if you can get, it's very alien to begin with, but
you're basically driving the tool with your right hand, aren't you?
And your body. That's why I prefer to spin the headstock, because then I can get my body involved. And the same on spindles. Whatever you're doing, if you move, if you not lock it, not tightly, but you lock everything in place, and you're moving your body, you get a much better curve, you get much better control. rather than using. That's why the earlier thing I was saying to you, where Stuart Batty does this, and you're out here to start the cut and coming in like that on the same plane, that is difficult.
Yeah.
But it takes practice, obviously.
Benjamin's got a question. Mike,
Hi, Ben, again.
Can you talk about the pros and cons of doing a push cut with the handle horizontally versus down low?
I only use that method, i.e. horizontal, when I'm practicing, and I say practicing, the push cut that Stuart Batty was demoing, which is specifically designed or specifically works best with a 40-40 grind. So I'm told, and I'm sure it does, but I've never used a 40-40 grind. So I use my grind with that method. I personally get better results with a zoom right out here, or as far as it'll go. I get far better results. Forget the fact it's the inside of a bowl. I get far better results doing a push cut with the handle down low, like this. Once I have done I could take this out of here. God, things we do, I don't know.
The horizontal does work a lot better with the 40-40.
Yes, I won't say it was designed for it. I don't think Stuart Batty invented the wheel, but I know it's only a small ball, but the same principles apply.
Up there, Mike. Ed's got a very important question for you.
Yes, I'm Welsh. Yeah, go on.
Can you demonstrate the knitting needle hold?
Oh, yeah. The knitting needle. What? The knitting needle what?
Hold.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no problem. I only have the one knitting needle, unfortunately. But by popular request, i.e. from Ed Oliver of Oliver's Wood Turning, I'm having so much trouble with this dead set today. Right, okay. This is a number 6, or is it a number 9? It could be. It's a number 6, or it's a number 9. I'm not a knitter. I'm a knit, but I'm not a knitter. So the knitting hold, and we'll go to the camcorder now. Okay, when you're holding, and as you can see, this is a special hook. This is a hook needle. Okay, and I use this to make my groove in my tenon. And what you do, you hold it, unlike Ed, with the thumb. Okay, and you basically put downward pressure there, and you bend it just like that. See? So that's the knitting needle hold that I really wouldn't recommend to the inexperienced knitter. Okay, so hope that answers your question, Ed. And if it didn't, I don't care. Right. Is this seriously happening? This is a bit surreal, this is. Okay, so a push cut. I personally prefer doing a push cut with a handle low, because I use a 50-degree bevel, 55-degree bevel, and I just pick up the cut and work my way around that way. That's how I prefer to do a push cut, because I think I have more control and get a fairly good surface as well. If you're doing a horizontal, as Pete says, 40-40 grind will benefit. The cut will benefit from a 40-40 grind. If I'm doing it this way, with the handle level, horizontal there on the cut, and doing this thing. Yeah, it does work, obviously, but I'm having to alter everything I'm doing, keeping it horizontal, because as I'm going round the bowl, I mean, that's not bad either. I haven't done that for ages. That's not bad either. But I prefer the other way. But I haven't practiced this a lot, I must be honest. And it is very satisfying when it gets right. Yeah. There we go. I've proved something to myself. I quite like that cut, actually, but a bit more practice needed. But
if you want to watch the horizontal, then Stuart Batty's video that was linked earlier is the one to watch.
Say what?
Stuart Batty's video that was linked earlier.
Yes, oh yeah, definitely. As I say, that's the one I recommended earlier on. That is the one to watch. You don't want to watch
Fire Emergency's asking, that cut you were just doing, does that cut on the right wing?
Does this cut on the... No.
Oh, it cuts on the left. Oh, just off the centre of the left.
Just off the... Just off the left. That's not going to focus now. Just off the left of the nose. Just off the left of the nose. If I was cutting right wing, I'd be like that. It's not showing very well, is it? Right. Okay. Well, whichever cut I'm doing, whether it's the horizontal cut or I'm doing the lower handle cut, the wood is spinning here. I'm keeping contact with the left wing. There's no way I can keep, even with the horizontal, you're still...
The bottom wing, basically.
Yes, you're cutting on the bottom wing, not the top wing. Because if you're on the top wing, you're not going to get a cut. Well, you get a catch, but you can't actually engage the edge horizontally. You can only engage this, the left one. So that's why you're right out here to begin with. That's why you start right out here to begin with, because you have the bevel to contact and the left of the nose to contact, and then the object is to maintain horizontal aspect right the way around while still cutting on exactly the same place that you started the cut on. Because that is a big problem as well with a lot of people, that what I said earlier on about watching what you're doing, what results are occurring when you're doing a cut. Once you get that shaving as you want it and it feels right, whatever width it is, how it's coming off in the curls, that is what you want to maintain through the whole cut.
I'd like to chuck in, there is one exception to the thumb pressure rule.
Yeah.
With both the bowl and the spindle gouge, and that's when you're starting the cut.
Oh, yes.
You can just lock your thumb against it to stop it skating backwards.
Yes, but that is a spindle gouge, not a bowl. I totally agree. I mean, I've demonstrated that. It's one of the ways of making an entry cut, if you like, where the spindle gouge is not allowed to skid back. Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, but we're talking of, mind you. Having said that, I suppose your starting cut,
the very first starting cut, when you come off of the
on a bowl,
solid bowl,
yeah,
to get your opening cut. Right?
Yes, that is the exception. I totally agree with that. Yep. Thank you for pointing that out.
Anybody else got any more questions?
Let's put the lads back on. Yes, why is Ed Oliver here? Dire Emergency, Gav, good evening. Rob, CP, Paul Kavanagh, Mark Valentine, all these people, my pit crew haven't told me you've arrived. Thank you very much for coming. No, I know you can't. I'm only kidding. To every Oliver's wood turning or rotate your headstock out. Yes, yes, Ed. If you'd been following and kept up, I did say that when I turn bowls normally, I like to turn the headstock because it makes it a lot easier. But not everybody has a revolving headstock, a rotating headstock, so they can't do it. But the good news for the newer turner is now, after hopefully COVID will continue to improve with regards to meeting people and that. There are quite a lot of people now starting, I think, next month, maybe even the end of this month, starting face-to-face tuition again. So it'll make me redundant then, you see. But no, that is the way to go.
Actually, if you're looking for some face-to-face, now's the time to go and find who you want to get face-to-face with and start booking, because those places are beginning to open up and will fill quickly.
Yes, they will. I'd just like to make a public announcement. Ed Oliver has said something that I never thought I'd ever hear him say. I'm here to show my support for you, my old mate. What a load of codswallop.
He's been drinking again, hasn't he?
No, well, the thing is, I mean, when I watched Ed yesterday morning, I didn't say a thing out of place for less than about 5 minutes.
Because I say, I was watching that live and I think you did.
I, for one, can't wait for Ed Oliver to be to allow people there, because I'm going to be one of his first visitors. And by God, have I got to give him some stick when I see him. I think Ed actually thought when I come down, maybe we do a little video. And I can show you what turning's all about.
Bold statement.
We'll look forward to that.
Mind you, I'm such a liar as well, Mark, as you well know. Oh dear. Do you know, I can't believe it. We've been on for... Say what?
I said you could teach Ed how to turn a goblet.
I don't think so. I think Ed is more than capable of turning a goblet every bit as good, if not a lot better than me. I mean, a goblet's only a very small bowl, isn't it, basically? So, no, I can't believe it's been an hour to 2 hours, 10 minutes. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed it anyway, and I hope that some of you have gleaned something from it, not just from me, but from the lads and from the chat as well.
Yep.
So you don't need to back up the gouge with your thumb. Yeah, no, you. Do you know what, Rob? Sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. If I'm feeling in a good mood, and I feel that I've been turning okay, I will go in without the thumb support, and I will do the putting your having your bevel at 90 degrees to the wood, and just making an incision basically with the nose, and then just twisting. And that is, again, I'm talking lovely feelings. I'm not really sad. It's a great feeling when you get it right. But it's not a very good feeling when you get it wrong. And you've got to then reduce the height of your bowl by whatever gouge mark you've made on the rim of your bowl, or the perspective rim of your bowl.
It does depend on the size of the bowl, the shape of the bowl.
Yeah.
So the rim, lots and lots of variables on it, but sometimes it's best to put your thumb behind it just for that first initial cut.
Yeah, totally agree.
Like you said, once you've got that nose just made a mark, you've got something to follow, take the pressure off.
Once the bevel has got something to register against, to ride, and I use the word ride very sparingly. I don't mean ride, giving it loads of pressure as a guide. Once it's got that, that's why quite often if you do a bowl, it's quite good to do a lot of ridges, because it's giving support to your initial cut when you're working your way down the bowl. But there are very, very different methods of doing things, and it does depend a bit on the day. I used to play a lot of golf years ago, and when you go out there, you have a good round and you think, oh, I've got this beat, and you go out the following day and it looked like you never picked a set of clubs up in your life, because I didn't practice. I just went out to play golf. I didn't practice. I did it at home, a bit in the garden, but I didn't have lessons. And, I didn't put the hours in to get as good as I possibly could have done. But the professionals, people say, oh, Tiger Woods, he's brilliant. Yes, he's brilliant. He spends 5 hours on the golf course. He spent 3 hours on the practice tees before the game and another 2 hours afterwards. And when he's not in a match and he's not in a tournament, he's out practicing 8 hours a day. Or other professionals do the same thing. So, it's like they say about Steve Jones with the skew chisel. Steve Jones is great. I'll never be as good as him. Yeah, you'll be as good as him when you've had 33 years experience and you spend 8 hours a day, 5 days a week using the screw chisel to make a living. It doesn't come overnight. It comes with practice. Everything does. But it doesn't always work, and I'm living proof of that. Right. Tony has asked a question. Thanks.
Yeah, I've asked him to clarify.
Okay. Thank you, Simon. Thanks for popping in, mate. Appreciate it. Thank you. Good night, Wood Dude. Dude. Thanks very much for coming, mate. Appreciate it. Tony Rudkin, as I need to chat thoughts. I've got new stickers. What can I put on my life? Because I'm trying to get some. I understand that.
Yeah, I've asked him to clarify that question.
Yeah. Mike, do you have any stretching exercises to recommend for turners? I tell you what, Adam, you won't believe this. I suffer with a bad back, and I've suffered with a bad back for 40 of my 69 years. And I should do exercise. I go to the osteopath. It's more expensive, but it's easier than doing exercises. Go to the osteopath once a month. But no, believe it or not, it's the same with golf, isn't it? I mean, you warm up. You don't warm up to look good. You warm up to get your muscles, and you should do the same when you're turning. I do. What I normally do, on a serious note, I normally put a rubbishy bit of wood on, and just do a few cuts and a few practices. Maybe cut a few beads, just to get into the zone again, and then carry on with the rubbish that I normally produce. Glad you enjoyed it, TJ. Thank you very much indeed. I'm glad you enjoy the format as well. Downward dog and upward cat. All right. Yeah, right. I think there is something in stretching before turning, to be honest. I totally agree with you. Yeah. Because, I mean, you're tense, aren't you, when you start? The other thing, of course, sounding very boring here, but a lot of tension and a lot of stress in your shoulders, etc., is being tense and not relaxing, holding the tool too hard and being too stressed out when you're doing something. That's the idea of having, ideally, for most people, having the spindle height at your elbow when it's bent. It's not there because, that'll do. It's there because when you're there, your shoulders aren't hunched. You're not going like that. You're not bending. You're at the most comfortable position to do most of your cuts. But a lot of the time is you leaning in and you're tensing up, and that's when all the stress and the strain and the muscle ache comes from. And I know because it happens to me.
Bit of a strange question, Mike. On your extension socket on the bench behind you,
Sorry.
Is that a pen on the sockets behind you?
Yeah.
The other side.
Yeah.
Is that a pen blank on top of those sockets? The electric socket? No, down.
Oh, here? No.
Somebody's asking, is that a pen blank?
No, it isn't. That there is
good
what
eyes.
when I yeah, very good eyes. When I put an extension, lead like this is an extension socket, which runs to the mains. When you get two little screws to sort of hang it on, if you like, and I always put a bit of wood on top so it's solid, so that you can't, when you're putting a plug in or pulling a plug out, you don't lift it off the mountains.
The inner workings of Mike's mind.
Yeah, it's sad, believe me. I got a bit of wood. I tell you what, my little stand with my computer here, I got a bit of wood on the cables. I've got sort of fairly tidy, but they get in the way. And I thought, right, I've got hooks on the ceiling. It's too high, so I just screwed a bit of wood about that long, stuck a hook on it, and I can hang the cable there at the back of the computer when it's at different areas. And it's all bits of rubbish wood. But there you go. That's not helping anybody's bowl turning.
Nathan Carr is asking, where did you get the rubber chuckies for turning square blanks on your last video, please?
Yeah, I did put, there's a link in the description of that video, and it's the Rubber Chucky Company. I was sent them 4 or 5 years ago to see what I thought of them, and it was when I did my first 3-sided bowl that fell off the lathe. It didn't fall off the lathe because of the mounting. You can actually do that sort of turning between the spindle and a revolving cup center on your headstock, on your tailstock. So you don't need the rubber chuckies, but I will say they do make the job a lot easier. And that's where they come from.
You can also make them out of wood if you need to.
Yes, you can. You can make them out. You can make them out of wood. All you need is a register for that corner, because you're making a cube basically. And the video I put up yesterday is of that sort of a turning, if you like. Oh, I knew what I wanted to. Excuse me a second, please.
I'll ask him in a minute, James.
Here. Right, what I was going to say, this is going back to a previous video, okay? A previous live, when people are going about finishing cuts is relative to the speed of the traverse through the wood. This is not sort of being conceited. That is the lid of the potpourri bowl that I did in yesterday's video, okay? Now, a spalted beach, and there's holes in there as well, obviously, but that's the surface I got, okay? 6 applications of sanding sealer, and that is how it started. If you can see that punky wood, there's really punky. And I wasn't sure, I was thinking of throwing, I'm going to have to make another lid because it ain't going to work, but it did. I turned it at 2,500 RPM, freshly sharpened spindle gouge, and went through the wood as if I was going 500 revs, really slow, and it gave a superb finish. I'm not saying it happened all the time, but it proves the point that to get a decent finish, get a good cut, it's the speed at which you go through the wood. You've got to allow the wood, and I don't normally turn at 2,500 RPM. It's only in certain instances like that, and it does pay dividends. It really does.
James Wood's asking, have you got any update on the Irish grind that you were trying?
Yeah. It's exactly as it was when I did it 5 weeks ago. That's as far as I've got. I haven't actually got an edge on it properly yet. Well, I've tried it again. Can you see that?
Yep.
It's great if you want that sort of thing. I honestly don't think it's necessary for me. I shan't. I must probably sharpen that out because it's still got a bit of a horseshoe on the end, as you can see there. I can appreciate why people love it, but for the amount of bowl turning I do, which is not that few, I find my original grind to be adequate. Let's put it that way. I'm sure that once you use it and utilize it, you want nothing else. But I'm not in the market of taking I don't want to take a 1-inch shaving. I have no need to do that. And somebody did make a comment on Facebook to say, well, you can take really big pull cuts. I can take really big pull cuts with my 1-inch bowl gouge, and that is the wing on there. If I can get a shaving there, which is just over 1/2 inch, that's more than enough for me, thank you. And as you've seen, I can get, but one can get nice pull cuts, i.e., cutting the fibres, and shearing, shear scraping. Your shear cuts and shear scraping, can get them all with that grind, and that suits me fine. It's a personal thing, as I say, but the Irish grind, it's too much hassle is the word. I like everything to be as standard, not standard, as uniform as possible. When I got the Pro Edge, I spent a day altering everything, every single tool I had to the Pro Edge. There's only a degree here, half a degree there, but I got everything set up on there, and I use virtually the same setting. Well, I never alter the setting of the jig. I just alter the holes I use for different tools, and I only use 2 of those. I use the nearest one and the middle one, and that's all. And that's all I want is repeatability and speed of sharpening. And having an Irish grind brings a third problem, if you like, that I've got to do. This way, if I'm turning a bowl, all my bowl gouges, apart from the bottom feeder, are all the same. 55 degrees, thereabouts, and that's it.
Gotta say, I've tried pretty much every different grind that's documented out there. I have reverted to, all right, 55, not 45, but a fairly short fingernail, 55 degree for my standard bowl gouge. And I do like the 40-40. That's mostly for novelty value. I'm enjoying it, and I do use that quite a lot.
Yeah.
Especially on wetwood.
But you turn a lot of bowls, mate.
Yeah, on wetwood, the 40-40 works exceptionally well.
I'm sure it does.
It takes a lot of timber.
Yeah.
But the Irish grind and the Ellsworth and various others, I've been there, done that, and yeah, don't use them enough, so I don't bother.
But I think that it's important, if you get the opportunity, to try something. Because we are an inquisitive species, and if someone says, "Oh, you want to try this?" Yeah, okay, and you try it, and if you don't like it, is no lot. I have found in 10 years of turning that I should have taken up knitting 10 years ago. Now I find that I revert to what I know, and that suits me where I am in my turning. It doesn't hurt it. It works for me. So I use it, and I'll try other things on an old tool maybe, but if I'm not absolutely gobsmacked with it, I'm not going to change.
The good thing about the bowl gouge is you do sharpen it more often than the others.
Good night, Eric. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it, mate. Sorry, I'm just saying good night to a couple of people. Good night, Andy. Thank you very much for coming, mate.
Because you sharpen it more often, you'll have quite a few of them that get worn out.
Cheers, Stuart.
The last 3 inches you can use to play with.
Thanks, Nathan. No, I agree.
For anybody watching from America, I think Eric's made a hint to it earlier on. I think it's Mother's Day over there. So call your mothers or you'll be in trouble.
Yeah.
Right, guys, if there are no more questions, I would like to thank everybody that's still here, and obviously the people that are not here, for turning up tonight. I hope that some of you got a bit out of it from me and the lads, and indeed from the chat. My next live will be either next Sunday, the Sunday after, or the Sunday after that. And I can't be more specific because there are certain things going on and I'm not with work and other things. So I will let you know as soon as I know. And it'll be the final in the beginner series as far as I've planned. And that's the skew chisel, which should please a few people. Okay, well, thank you very much indeed once again. For those of you that have bought me a coffee, thank you very much indeed. I do appreciate it. And thanks very much to both Pete, seeing he's on there. If you'd like to say good night, Pete.
Everyone.
And also to Mark, the gentleman woodturner.
Cheers, everybody.
And thank you all once again. And I look forward to seeing you very soon. Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Right, that's done.